This is The Guardian.
Hello and welcome to The Guardian Football Weekly. The race for fifth place, Newcastle hammer Manchester United at St James's Park, presumably surprising no one, but puts them into fourth. Andre Onana dropped from the squad by Ruben Amorim, who now has two out-of-form keepers to choose from for the huge game against Lyon on Thursday. Game of the weekend at the Etihad, Crystal Palace 2-0 up, so close to a third before Kevin De Bruyne decided to show us all, and whoever gets him next season, that he can still do it. Chelsea are desperately trying to avoid the bind of Champions League football, scraping a draw at home to Ipswich, while Aston Villa can afford to miss two penalties, some goal from Ollie Watkins too. And there's a disappointing defeat for Nottingham Forest, a deserved and last-minute winner for Everton. We'll discuss whether the Premier League is any good, round up the rest of it, another calamitous defeat for Spurs, Leicester finally scoring a goal, Liverpool keep meandering to the title, and Arsenal draw with Brentford. Also today, Rangers keep Celtic waiting, just some Swindon players are very mean to a Bradford City defender, and Tranmere turn into Brazil 1970 for 12 minutes. All that plus your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hi, Max.
Sam Dalling, hello.
Good morning, Max.
The up-and-coming broadcaster, Mark Pougatch, hello.
Hello, Max.
Don't be nervous, just be yourself, Pougers. You'll be all right.
I'm a bit short of sleep because I stayed up so late to watch the golf last night, which was, we're going to talk about the Premier League, what it is. That was so emotional. That was just pouring out of every bit of Rory McIlroy. That was incredible to watch.
Yeah, Dwayne did say the Premier League was pretty boring this weekend. Should the pod be exclusively about the Masters for one episode? We will get to whether the Premier League is any good, but I suppose the race for the Champions League spots is interesting. Nottingham Forest third with 57 points. Newcastle have a game in hand on everyone else. They have 56. Man City 55, Chelsea 54 and Villa 54 as well. Let's begin at St James's Park. Newcastle beating Manchester United 4-1. Sam, you were there. How was it?
It was lovely, Max. I think it's a strange world we live in, isn't it? Because Newcastle had Manchester United on Sunday and then Crystal Palace is their game in hand on Wednesday. And where most supporters are thinking, actually, Palace is the tougher test here. It's just a show of how Manchester United have fallen. But as a child of the 90s, as someone who has lived through those years of Manchester United glory, of having people goad you, despite the fact that if they fell over on Matt Busby Way and Fred the Red picked them up, they would have no idea they were at Old Trafford. It will never not be funny seeing Manchester United be rubbish and watching Manchester United come as an away team and sit back and try and hit a team on the break, which they did, in fairness to them. It's just a complete change in outlook. But Newcastle were very good. I thought it was quite an even first half. I thought Newcastle were excellent second half. Not at their absolute best, but they didn't need to be, really.
Mark, some lovely goal. Tonali's goal was beautiful.
I didn't realise what a mean podcast this was, kicking Manchester United while they're down. It's funny Sam says that because actually plenty of people say to me, because I'm a little older than Sam, Manchester United can be rubbish for the rest of our lives and it wouldn't be long enough because of all the pain that they've inflicted. Tonali's goal was brilliant. And Isak's assist, because the first touch actually wasn't quite good enough, but he readjusts so brilliantly to play that little lobbed, Sam obviously would have seen it close up, that little lobbed pass over the defence, and then Tonali smacks it in from an angle. The extraordinary thing is now that Newcastle beating Manchester United convincingly is just not a surprise. And you said it, Sam, the harder game for Newcastle this week is Crystal Palace, who until last weekend have been brilliant away from home. Man United just seem to be going round and round and round in circles, don't they? And it's hard to think of, apart from Bruno Fernandes, any player that Amorim can hang his hat on next season going forward. And how long would he want to hang around? I'm talking about Bruno Fernandes if this carries on. So it's still looking at the table last night when I was working and see, what are they, 14th? It's just baffling. Manchester United are in the lower half of the table like that.
Yeah, apart from obviously for Spurs fans who look up at 14th with dreamy eyes, don't they? Have we done Baz enough Newcastle before we go on to another sort of painful unravelling of what Manchester United are and the Andre Onana story, which was kind of the most interesting story going into the game?
Well, I suppose it's worth mentioning Jason Tindle was in charge. Because Eddie Howe is ill. We wish him well, obviously. This was Jason's time to shine, to do what he was born to do. Newcastle are on a tsunami of confidence, and I can't see them not qualifying for the Champions League the way they're going. And the fact that Manchester United were just so poor, I expected Newcastle to win this game. I think most people did. I didn't expect them to win it quite so emphatically. But whatever about Manchester United being not very good, it's so many of their players aren't even making an effort. They're not trying. Tackles being missed, players walking when they should be running, not sprinting back. It was just very, very easy for Newcastle. The goalkeeping situation is one that Amorim is going to have to deal with, one that he probably hoped he would. It probably wasn't on his to-do list when he arrived, but it very much is now, because Andre Onana has not had a good season. He was terrible against Lyon in the Europa League. He was not only dropped for this game, but didn't even travel. Bainder came in his place. He didn't cover himself in glory. His mistake led to Newcastle's fourth goal. And so that's a problem that United are going to have to solve in the summer. We know they don't have a huge amount of money to spend. Good goalkeepers don't come cheap. So, how are they going to deal with that? I don't know. But while United being rubbish is no longer a story, it remains a big story because they're Manchester United.
You mentioned Pougatch. Amorim can't hang his hat on many United players. I mean, could he? If he puts the hat on Onana or Binder, would it just fall off? Is the question? I mean, I don't know if taking Onana out of the firing line. Obviously, the keeper that comes in lets in 4, and one of them is a big mistake. But it might not have been the worst decision to just tell Onana to have a day off. This game doesn't really matter to them.
No, I think he had to do that. I'm wondering, are footballers so... Do you have to worry about their sensitivities so much now that you have to come up with increasingly weird euphemisms for dropping them? Because what did he say about Onana? He needs to... Sam, I think you might have heard, he needs to reconnect and something else. I mean, just say it. He's dropped. He's been rubbish. He's a big boy. He can deal with it. You have to get back on the training ground and get his place back. It's, rested, rotated, refreshed, reconnects. Just say what it is. He's been crap.
I don't know if it was a good idea, though. I do get the logic in it, but if what you're trying to do is divert attention from someone and take them out of the spotlight, to do that in the middle of 2 very big European games, it could have gone either way. What we're saying basically is it's Tom Heaton's chance to shine, and he's going to be there. Yeah. Manchester United's number 1 for the Europa League, having done his years as a training goalkeeper. Look, Ruben Amorim probably knows what his Manchester United best 11 is, right? And not many of them are currently at the club. The young lad who came in on debut, I thought he did okay. And actually, Bruno Fernandes is someone who, as an opposition supporter, you're never going to like, right? He's there to wind you up. He's in. You're going to hate him, and that means he's a good player. But what I did notice was, while he was moaning at a lot of his teammates for not doing the thing, the senior teammates who should have been doing things, he actually came over a couple of times, because I sit in the East Stand and it was right in front of me, and he was talking that 18-year-old through that first half, which I thought was really good and actually sign of a captain. And I thought, okay, yeah, fair enough. Respect to you for that.
Max, you must like the fact that Harry Amass is named after a Latin verb. I mean, you must have clocked that and enjoyed that, given your classical education.
Yeah, well, my A star in GCSE Latin, it was a long time ago. Cerberus in mensa state, Pougas. Where are you taking this podcast? I'm a man of the people, for goodness sake.
Frank Lampard would get that reference.
Yeah. Drew says, is Jason Tindle now in contention for Manager of the Year? Yeah, you mentioned it, Barry. A club statement said medical staff kept Eddie Howe in hospital overnight for further tests, which are ongoing. He's conscious and talking with his family and is continuing to receive expert medical care. Everyone at Newcastle United extends their best wishes to Eddie for a speedy recovery. Of course, we all do as well. I just wonder, Jason Tindle, Sam, is such a pantomime villain outside of Newcastle United. I think everybody just finds him so infuriatingly annoying. That will make him, in a bit like the way Fernandes is loved by Manchester United, but he's sort of doing something. We don't really know what Tindall does, but clearly Eddie Howe loves him, and he must be totally loved by Newcastle fans.
Yeah, he is. Fans nicknamed him the Mad Dog a while back. But they share an office, right? They work so closely together. He'd have been missing his good pal. But the beautiful thing about Tindall is he is not actually the character that everyone portrays him as. I think he's probably on the touchline, but if you watch him in an interview, he really doesn't want to be there. He's quite awkward, he's quite shy, he's just coming out with cliches because he's just saying what he needs to say, and he just wants to get out of there. And I wasn't sure about the questioning afterwards about Eddie Howe. I sort of feel that if you put a statement out basically saying personal reasons, it should be left there. I think it's a bit unfair that he has to talk about that. I'm not sure the club helped themselves with the statement, the wording about he's conscious, and I think he's conscious and talking
That was a weird word to use. That really was.
I assume consciousness, unless I'm told that there is a lack of consciousness. My starting point is consciousness, and that's where the confusion came. But look, it's a sign of a good leader, right? Because if a leader has a lack of ego and doesn't make it all about themselves, which a lot of football managers actually do, if you set something up, it should be able to operate completely as it was without you there. And actually, that's what it did for Newcastle. He wasn't at training all week, and they came out and they still played exactly the same. So I think kudos to him. And I know you want to move on, but I just want to quickly mention Harvey Barnes, because he hasn't had any... he's had no luck, right? And there's no ill will towards him by Newcastle fans. He's been there best part of 2 years. I think everyone thought it was a bit odd, given this PSR restraints, to spend that much money on a player where you already have another player in that position in Anthony Gordon. And it's felt like he's known for the first 18 months of his career that every time he gets a start in the cup, he has 45 minutes, 60 minutes, he doesn't change the game, and so he gets taken off. So he hasn't had that confidence. And the Anthony Gordon sending off against Brighton in the FA Cup, everyone thought, that's season defining, right? It's pivotal. Gordon is going to miss 3 games. He can't play in the final. But what it actually did was allowed Harvey Barnes a little run where he knows he's going to be number one. He's not looking over his shoulder. And actually, so he's played 5 full games, scored 3 goals, a couple of assists, won a cup, and he's shown what he was signed for. And that second goal, I'm thinking he's won the ball back, and I'm going, right, you've done that now, Harvey. Play in Isak, because Alexander Isak is always the better option. But actually, he's now got the confidence to keep going through the middle. And so it's nice to see Harvey Barnes smiling and giving a run.
I'm going to the hospital later today to visit a friend of mine who broke his leg skiing last week, and the reason I'm going is because he's conscious and sick of talking to his family.
Let's go to the Etihad. Man City 5, Crystal Palace 2. Baz, this was a cracker, wasn't it?
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this first half. I was doing the minute by minute for The Guardian, and it absolutely flew by, that first half. And it was a very strange game. It was a really, really good game up till around the 70 minute when it went beyond Palace, and then there was free kicks and injuries and substitutions, and it sort of got very scrappy for the last 20 minutes. But Palace went 2-0 up. I mean, City weren't playing particularly badly, but they went 2 goals down. They should have gone 3 down, but Eberechi strayed offside when he didn't need to. So his effort was ruled out for offside after a VAR check. Ismaila Sarr missed a really, really good chance. He pulled back to him from he was about 6 or 7 yards out, and he ballooned the ball over the bar when he should have hit the target and scored. Kevin De Bruyne, I think, between those 2 chances, hit the post, and then City got a free kick from him. Yeah, it was a silly foul on the edge of the area. City got a free kick. De Bruyne hit the post again. The ball went in on this occasion, and then City just were rampant from then on. They scored 5. De Bruyne was back to his very best. They probably should have scored 8 or 9. James McAtee got a great goal from an Ederson assist, Ederson's 4th of the season. And he should have scored at least 2 more. He missed quite a few chances. And Kevin De Bruyne missed a couple of chances. Omar Mamouche missed a good chance. Gundogan missed a good chance. So City, having been 2-0 down, could have gone 4-0 down and ended up winning 5-2 and could have won 10-3 or 4. Great game.
Pougatch, afterwards it was interesting. De Bruyne coming out and saying, look, they made a decision and I'm at peace with it, and now I'm just going to be as good as I can be. Interesting that we weren't totally sure who'd made that call, if it had been like a conscious uncoupling or whatever. But also the fact that he just decided, okay, he was so unplayable. It was sort of quite a nostalgic performance from him.
It makes me wonder, didn't it? Because he said it was the first time in a long time he played pain-free.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder if he plays that well when he's pain-free. Man City have made their decision. I don't know, they'll go for Florian Wirtz or somebody. Probably won't they, Leverkusen. My point is, are we being too hasty and writing him off and saying, oh, he's definitely going to go and play in America or definitely go and play maybe in Saudi? Might he actually stay in one of the big European leagues if he can play that well? And obviously you can't use him in the way that City have used him up till now because of his age and the fact that he has broken down a bit recently. Do you see my point? Maybe a big club, maybe in Italy where the game's a bit slower, maybe in Spain, maybe they might say, I mean, I can't see anybody in England, although it'd be interesting if anybody had a dabble. But maybe if there's someone goes to him and says, listen, you're too good to go and play with respect in America just now. What is he? He's 33, I think. So have a couple more years in a major European league. Then you can go and play in San Diego or into Miami or whatever. So I think, yes, I think it was really interesting his performance in it. Maybe a few people looking at it going, oh, right, there is still a bit of mileage left in him at the top level, having to use him as a sort of special player or use him sparing. I mean, his free kick, Barry, didn't you think it was extraordinary? They had two walls, Crystal Palace, didn't they? They had a big wall and then a smaller wall and then two Man City players in between. And then Henderson seemed to get his studs caught or whatever. And he sort of fell over backwards like he was coming out the pub at 11 o'clock at night and it went in off the post. It was a bizarre goal.
Yeah, I think Henderson is just not expecting it to go that way and his weight is completely...
through the middle of the walls. Yeah.
And he catches it, doesn't it? It's nice to have a big wall and a little wall. Like one is like a show wall.
Yeah, well...
It's like...
But talking after the game, De Bruyne, like he's generally a very honest player, very forthright, and he genuinely doesn't seem to know what's next on the agenda for him. And I suppose it's down to his ambition as a footballer, or has he kind of decided, right, I've won everything, I need to win, it's time to put my family first now. And he did say, look, my kids were born in Manchester, they've grown up in Manchester. He's got 3 children, I think 2 girls and a boy. They're all maybe about 9 down, I think, in age. And he said, they're quite scared and nervous about what comes next. So it might be a case that he puts them first and his wife first rather than his own footballing ambition, because he may not have much footballing ambition left.
If they don't want to get homesick, he could just sign for Manchester United and then it's...
Or Stockport County.
Yeah, absolutely right. Would anybody like a list of players that Edison now has more Premier League assists than? Here we go. Daniel Agger, Miguel Almiron, blimey, Sean Bartlett, Steve Bold. I mean, he didn't play that many incisive passes. He must have done a lot of flick-ons at corners.
Oh, Steve Bold played the pass for Tony Adams' volley that day.
Of course,
so
he did.
That's one assist.
Yeah, but that's not enough.
That's not enough.
Diego Forlan, Jeff Hendrick, Shinji Kagawa, Ben Mee, and Mido, amongst others. There we are. What a player. And farewell, Darren Cann. Do you know what he looks like now, Barry?
I do. I didn't realise he'd done a World Cup final, and he got very emotional at the end of the game. He was there were a few tears as various players, I think, knew that it was his last game, so they were coming up and having a little word with him, and it got to him. He doesn't look like, if you met him and he wasn't, dressed as a linesman and carrying a flag, you would not guess in 100 years what he did for a living.
No, you're right. Fortunately, Darren always dresses that way and has promised to remain dressed like that for the rest of his life. But we wish him well. And that'll do for part 1. Part 2, we'll do the other sides trying to get into the top 5. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So at Stamford Bridge then, Chelsea 2, Ipswich 2. Chelsea just 5 wins in 16 now. I mean, it could have been worse, Sam. They were 2-0 down to Ipswich. They did have 34 shots in the game, the most they've had under Maresca. So what did you make of their performance?
It was strange. I was following it from afar. People had the BBC live text or various other live texts that are available, and we were desperately hoping as Newcastle fans that Ipswich would hold on to that. They started brilliantly, didn't they, Chelsea? They sort of battered them early doors and then find themselves 2-0 down. And Ipswich without Delap and without Hutchinson, so a lot of their top scorers out of it. And they were a bit shell-shocked, weren't they? But they did they came back into it. I know. I think last time I was on, we were talking about Maresca and this idea that it's a bit boring. Like it felt like that with Leicester. They weren't infused by him when they won the Championship, his style of football. But 35 shots sort of speaks for itself. Like that seems to be quite exciting. I think the Ipswich keeper, right, Alex Palmer, how he's made those 3 saves at the end. I mean, whoever was on the Match of the Day commentary they've had Palm Sunday waiting for absolutely ages to go as a pun, and it just fell perfectly. I mean, Fernandes, his face when he's hit that volley, he has struck that so sweetly, and actually he's properly, and this sounds weird, he's made that save, Palmer, right? It hasn't just hit him, he's somehow had the reactions to put his hand there, and a hell of a strong fist. So like it opens things right up. Maresca afterwards sort of we're talking about, I think he says we're stronger with our fans, it's up to them to decide the way. I'm always a bit wary if like it's not up to them to decide the way, is it really, Enzo? It's more on you and the lads in the shirts. No, so I always think it's a bit of dangerous ground if you're starting to criticise the home supporters.
Yeah, and because he has sort of said, look, there's not pressure to finish in the top 4, but Chelsea have still spent the £1 billion that they've spent, right? And they are dysfunctional. I mean, in a way, they're sort of lucky they're just not as dysfunctional as Manchester United or Tottenham. But like now it is the top 5. And you look at what they've invested compared to, say, and all these sides are spending a lot of money, but like they should be one of those teams.
Well, not to get into the top 5, as you say, let alone the top 4. I mean, at Christmas, we were talking, if you remember, look at the table at Christmas. I'm sure you were doing it. We were all saying the various places I work. Liverpool are obviously favourites. Then there's Arsenal. But Chelsea are just behind Arsenal. There's very little, Chelsea had almost as much of a chance as Arsenal at Christmas. And if you have a look at their last 16 results compared with the first 16. I mean, it's day and night. It's absolute day and night. And you can't just say, oh, well, Cole Palmer's gone off the boil. What? So it's all about a 21-year-old. It's literally, that's what you're saying. If a 21-year-old can't, or whatever he is, can't carry the team, they don't look very settled at the back, do they? They're centre-halves. I mean, they've bought 1,400 centre-halves, and none of them are really coming up to the mark, are they? Colwell's got a long way to go. Reece James is in and out the team. Cucurella with his hair's done well. I mean, you've got Caicedo and Fernandes. I agree, Sam, it was an astonishing save that from Fernandes. They look settled. Nicholas Jackson when he's fit, but there are just still so many question marks over the team, having spent $1 billion. I was with Sean Wright-Phillips last night working. I said, do you think they'll get rid of him in the summer? He didn't think they would, actually, even if they missed top 5. Now, listen, if this had been Abramovich, they definitely would have done. I mean, they probably would have done by now, wouldn't they? But it's hard to see the thread of narrative, isn't it, with Chelsea? It really is.
I'm disappointed that you said working. I just hoped that you were just having dinner with Sean Wright-Phillips watching again. There was this lovely moment on Match of the Day, and obviously I love Dion Dublin, but he was sort of saying, they were running through clips of Chelsea missing chances, and he was just saying, look, the trouble is they're missing chances and no one is getting angry with anyone. And then it just, as he was saying this, it just cut to a Chelsea player having a shot and missing, and Cucurella going apoplectic and his hair like bouncing up and down, I mean, genuinely, utterly, absolutely furious.
Well, look, he's the winner, isn't he? Euros winner. He probably, he is the one who is getting cross and the others aren't. No, I mean, Dion, that's one of his bugbears, isn't it, Dion, for sure. Yeah.
They lost at Ipswich, didn't they, as well, actually? So they're the only team. So they've dropped 5 points against Ipswich. Like, if they don't finish in the top 5, that is their thing. But kudos to Ipswich, by the way. That pink away kit, that should be mandatory for all teams. You should have to have a luminous, like a proper away kit. Nothing that could ever come close to the home team. Just get the Stabilo pack out, pick a colour at the start of the year, and have an away kit like that.
Yeah. I'm with you. I wonder, we often hear, Barry, about, a team doesn't have any leaders. And I'm just trying to think I know they have people that have, and Enzo Fernandez has clearly won something Cucurella has, but like it doesn't necessarily sort of jump out at you who is sort of leading this set of people. And because it changes quite a lot and different players come in and come out, maybe that is an issue for Chelsea.
Yeah, it could be. It isn't something I'd really thought about until Dion Dublin raised the issue. I too am a big fan of his, particularly on Homes Under the Hammer, which I try to watch as often as I can. Although I have lost all faith in it ever since someone had a house near mine, which was almost derelict.
Okay.
And they did it up and then claimed that the entire renovations had only cost 60 grand. And I'm thinking, it cost me nearly that much just to get a new bathroom window. You're lying.
You're calling them a fraud.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was Holmes Under the Hammer Weekly. We would.
Yeah. Oh.
It would be a more insightful podcast. Anyway,
Sorry. Chelsea's leaders. Yeah, I think the likes of Fernandes and Cucurella should be more vocal. Not having played in a sports team for many, 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 many years, I can't even remember the dynamics of how it works. I was very much a follower, more of a follower than a leader, as I am in all walks of life. I just do what I'm told. So I do appreciate if someone is barking at me and telling me what to do.
Well, that's good to know. Let's go to St Mary's. Aston Villa won 3-0. First time 3 substitutes have scored for the same team in a Premier League game. Easy enough in the end, Mark. Should we start with that beautiful opening goal? Because the ball from Tielemans, who has been brilliant, and the finish from Watkins is so nice.
I'm glad you mentioned Tielemans, because do you remember when he was coming to the end at Leicester, there was all sorts of chat about he was going to go on a Bosman, where was he going to go, would it be a big club? And all you ever heard was, yeah, good player, but I'll be blunt, is he quite fit enough? Sometimes he doesn't look in shape. I mean, that's what everyone was saying. And so to go to Villa and play as consistently as he has, it just shows everything about Emery, doesn't it, as well? My immediate reaction on watching it was, I'm going to the game tomorrow night at Villa Park. I really hope it doesn't go to penalties, Aston Villa PSG, because Asensio's confidence will be through the floor, because he's twice done the old hitch kick, stop, wait for the goalkeeper. And I would love to see a camera pan in on Ramsdale, who presumably just looked him straight in the eye and went, "And? Yeah? What? I'm not going anywhere." Because obviously he's waiting, Asensio, for him to shift his weight, and he didn't this time.
The fourth player to miss 2 penalties in a Premier League game after Juan Pablo Angel, Darren Bent and Saido Berahino.
And you could see how really irritated he was after the second one, even when McGinn popped it in. He was fuming, wasn't he? So that's not going to be good if it goes to a shootout tomorrow evening. But look, Villa, I think Villa, obviously they've got the semi-final against Palace. But Emery, he's so smart. I don't think they'll get through against PSG, because I think PSG are absolutely different gravy, especially their midfield. But I think with the momentum they've got, I think they will reach the Champions League actually from here. I know they've obviously all got some big games, but he rotates the team so well. You know, Watkins comes off the bench and scores. Asensio's obviously been brilliant. He's had his moments. I don't think he's done any more than moments myself. I know a lot of people think he's been amazing there. I don't think he's been that good, but you know, Emery's got them in exactly the right place. And Southampton, I mean, it's when I watched the highlights, at the first shot, it was so empty. I thought, have they gone to the 88th minute or something? And I thought, well, no, crikey, this is like the 25th minute. There's just nobody there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily blame them. I don't know. Like, winning doesn't really matter. As a fan, it wouldn't bother me, because the teams I follow, I wouldn't end up going ever, basically. Yeah. Look, I think Villa play Newcastle soon, don't they, Sam? That feels like a big one in this.
Yeah, that's next Saturday, so that feels huge. Newcastle went there last year thinking they were going to lose and won 3-0. But yeah, I mean, Emery's got a great squad, and you have to admire, as Mark said, what he's put together, the way he's picked up Tielemans as a free. And I like the fact, that Donyell Mallon, must have been difficult for him, because he was signed presumably on the basis, I'm going to play Champions League football, and that's a tough conversation to have and say, actually, we've given you 3, 4, 5 years, whatever he got, but actually we're bringing a couple of lads in on loan and we're going to drop you out of the Champions League squad. So a good bit of man management there to get him going, and they just have a squad that some of the other sides around there haven't got. So it's see how they get on against PSG, and maybe that'll sap them.
We've wondered if Nottingham Forest would slip before, and they haven't, and they sort of proved us wrong. They've obviously proved me and Barry very wrong, because we both predicted they'd get relegated this season, but they did slip up, Barry, at the weekend, and actually were quite outplayed by Everton. I know the goal was very late, but definitely didn't deserve anything from this game.
No, they didn't. Everton were the better side at the City ground, and an uncharacteristic error from Murillo led to their goal, which was very well taken by Doucouré, whose celebration I loved. So basically, you haven't, he did the signing a contract thing and the phone call thing, as in, what's going on here? Will someone call my agent so I can sign a new deal? And he explained that is exactly what he meant after the game, lest there was any doubt in anyone's mind. They are, of course, going to lose games, but I think the teams around them are also going to drop points and lose games. So I wouldn't be panicking.
Well, a few of them are playing each other, as Sam said. Obviously, Villa Newcastle will help. They're at Tottenham this weekend, Forest. If they lose that, I'm waiting for a reaction from Max. There we go. I'll set them up. If they lose that, I think Forest are in real trouble because I think everyone else has got the momentum. Villa, Newcastle, City. Arsenal look like they're going to sort of par their way to a score, which will get them in it. But I would love, we would all love Forest to be in the Champions League. And I was listening to the kickoff on the radio I was driving and hearing them singing Mull of Kintyre before kickoff was brilliant. I'm thinking, bring it back, Brian Clough, yada, yada, yada. But I just worry if this whole counter-attacking way of playing, it was almost like on Saturday they went, right, 0-0 will do. This is what we do, counter. 0-0's fine. And then Everton picked them off. And I'm like, it's like the Grand National coming to the last, isn't it? And they're not travelling as well as a few of them behind.
Yeah, you mentioned Doucouré. I did like the fact in the interview he said, I can't say much about what's going on, before his producer Joel writes, explaining in quite a lot of detail exactly how long he left on his deal, who he hadn't heard from, who he wanted to hear from.
Forest play Chelsea on the last day of the season. I think that's going to be massive. It's just it's not just that they lost, it was the performance. Like Everton were far better than them, and it's the wrong time of the season to have your wobble going into the final straight. Lovely to see David Moyes looking happy again, right? Because he looks younger and fresher, and he turned into this David Brent style figure at West Ham because whatever he did, it wasn't good enough. And he'd come into press conferences and he'd sort of make these dad jokes and then look around for the reaction, the laughter. It was really quite awkward, and he seems to be freed up a bit. And I think they'd be something like sixth if the season started since he came in.
Fifth, I think fifth, yeah.
So they've been brilliant under him with quite an average squad of players. And Doucouré's one of those. I love him because if you support a team, there's always which most people probably listening do, there's always a player that outside fans, opposition fans, assume is brilliant. But when you watch them week in, week out, actually they're the most frustrating player in the world. They're inconsistent. And I think Doucouré is one of them because he's a moments man, right? He scored the goal that kept them up, wasn't it, against Bournemouth after the Lampard Dyche season. He scored they won down at Brighton unexpectedly. They beat them 3 or 4-0. He scored a couple. He had that moment yesterday. So we all assume, Doucouré, absolutely like top level Premier League player. He's brilliant for Everton. And I think if you're an Everton fan, you sort of love him, but also wish you were a bit better so you could have replaced him earlier. I think he's in that category.
I think if you're a manager who can't get laughs at a press conference by cracking jokes, you're in big trouble because there is no more sympathetic comedy audience than a room full of obsequious football journalists.
It's like a best man speech, isn't it?
They'll laugh at anything.
Maybe centre court. Centre court. I think centre court might be the easiest. A pigeon gets, a standing ovation.
They were 1 point clear of relegation when he took over Moyes. They're now 17 points clear. There we are.
Yeah, tremendous from Moyes. Jake says, looking through the Premier League fixtures, was there a single one that the panel thought was interesting or had any jeopardy? I can't find any interest in this game week. Not great for April. You brought this to our attention. It's something we sort of touched on, Pougatch, haven't really talked about in detail. Is it clearly you want a title race and a relegation fight, right? And is it just a coincidence that one team is so much better than everyone else this season? Had it been Man City, I think you'd be right to say this is terrible. But there is every chance Liverpool wouldn't have been this good. And then we'd be saying, look, it's between 2 and 6. Or is that just a hypothetical argument? I think relegation is more of an issue with the gulf between the Championship.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just unlucky that one team's better than all the others.
Maybe we just have these seasons every now and then. I was just thinking the other day that that this season hasn't really taken fire. Now, Liverpool, it's not Liverpool's fault, and it's certainly not their fans' problem, because obviously they get a little bit, what do you expect us to do? Nothing. You've won the league and you deserve to. But in terms of a title race, Arsenal have let us down badly, and obviously, and I don't think you can say Man City have let us down badly because they have won 4 in a row. They are allowed an off season. But we've just had a situation where we've had no excitement at the top. We've had no excitement at the bottom. I've enjoyed Nottingham Forest. I've enjoyed Fulham and Brentford at times. That's been good. But I just feel that sort of visceral thrill of the Premier League that I associated with it has been missing this season. And I do think that we've sort of reached peak it's a hard word to say, Pepization of the game, where possession and keeping the ball is absolutely everything. And the elimination of risk, especially in the final third. Although interesting, of course, there's no elimination of risk when the goalkeeper's got it. It's like they flipped it. Goalkeeper, you take all the risks you can and give away goals. But at the other end, when you get the ball out wide, oh, no, because the percentage of something happening from across is this. So don't do that. Check back inside and let's horseshoe all the way around to the other side of the pitch. I'm looking at you, Arsenal, because that's what they do all day, horseshoe it round to Saka. So I'm thinking, when is actually, are we just in that phase now? Is it just a rogue season? But I just haven't had that. The word is visceral. That's such that thrill of exciting games, maybe of wingers getting the ball in the area. Everything seems terribly pre-programmed at the moment. I may be on my own, but that's, I've watched far too much football over the last 50 years. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I'm interested to know what you think, Sam, as someone who goes week in, week out. Because obviously when you saw the Everton fans score, they didn't think at that moment this is a boring season. When Brentford scored at the Emirates, they didn't think that. But I just wonder, is it boring, or is it just because someone's won the league?
Yeah, I almost think the opposite. It's strange. The natural places to look are right at the top, and basically we're saying it's Mikel Arteta's fault that it's boring because they've dropped 16 points from winning positions. That's not good enough. That's as many as in the last 2 seasons. If they drop half as many, we've got a title race. But around that, we've still got 5 or 6 teams vying for that top 5 place. I would say this: a new team has won the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup semi-finals. Unless Manchester City go on and win it, that's going to be fun. And I almost feel like we're in this post-perfectionism era, actually, whereas for a couple of years it became really boring and really structured, and it was Man City, and there were no errors. And now actually there are a lot more errors. Like the number of goalkeeping errors we're talking about, we're changing goalkeepers, and I watch games where actually we're below perfect, which is actually quite good fun. Tottenham have lost 17 games, Manchester United have won 14. We've talked about how good Brighton, Fulham and Bournemouth have been, yet they're still going to be mid-table. So yeah, the obvious thing is down at the very bottom, because I'm not sure how we fix that in the current PSR regime. There's 2 years in a row the 3 are going to come up and 3 are going to go down. But until Everton and Wolves changed managers, Wolves and Everton, it was 3 from 5. So you've got to give them kudos. Look, we'd love to have Aguero moments. We'd really love to see Michael Owen in full kit, stood on the pitch in Stadium of Light, watching the title slip away post-final whistle. Like that isn't going to happen. So that's the obvious thing that we are missing, but I found it quite fun.
You made a really good point about the cup competitions, and I am talking absolutely about the Premier League, because obviously I cover a lot of the cup, and the fact I never thought I'd feel this, because I am a child of the 70s, and I'd have 4th replays at Highfield Road on Thursday nights if I could. But those days are gone. So the fact that every cup game is decided on the day has definitely given both, and now the FA Cup obviously does it, has definitely given them a different feel and a different hue, because the game's got to be decided. So I think there is a very noticeable difference between approaches in the cup and the league. So I take your point entirely about the cups.
Barry, I mean, I feel like Football Weekly fits in a post-perfection era better than a perfection era. But what's your sense of this?
I think it has been an underwhelming Premier League season. The worry is always that if you point this out, you're accused of not liking football. Obviously, individual games can be good, even if there's not that much at stake. The City Palace game being a case in point, although City, do need to win. But agree that it's not all Mikel Arteta's fault. I would also like to throw Kieran McKenna into the mix, because I think Ipswich could have made a far better fist of trying to stay up than they have. They have, between them and Arsenal, they've lost 43 points from winning positions. Now, you would expect Ipswich to lose more points from winning positions than Arsenal, but I think if I was an Ipswich fan, I wouldn't have expected a huge amount from this season. I would have expected more.
Okay, so you're blaming Arteta and McKenna. I got from Pougatch that he was solely blaming Liverpool fans.
Okay, Liverpool fans, Arteta and Kieran McKenna. It's all their fault.
Anyway, that'll do for part 2. Part 3, we will go to Molineux to discuss Tottenham's latest defeat. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. First time ever, then Wolves have won 4 Premier League games in a row. Vitor Pereira has been so good. Greg says, could you please say a quick word about the job he's done at Wolves? Pick them up in 19th place. They just won 4 in a row for the first time since 1972. Then he walks into the Wetherspoons uptown to hang with the fans. I mean, there's huge optimism, Pougas, now around Molineux about next season.
I think he had a game about 2 or 3 games ago. Was that not 600 club games in management? I think it was. You're thinking, wow, this guy is seriously experienced, obviously in Iberia and I think in the Middle East. I think it's absolutely fantastic what he's done. I mean, assuming he'll probably lose Cunha in the summer, but there we are. He's proven that he can, he's proven he deserves to get the money, Pereira, and spend it wisely. I think Wolves fans will be massively encouraged. I mean, it seems a long time ago, Gary O'Neill and all that, doesn't it? It really does. And the whole sort of conversation about British managers and why aren't they getting more of a chance? And when he left, why don't they give it to a British manager? But, Gary O'Neill's been replaced by 2 managers now who've been outstanding, Iriola and Pereira. So it's not doing the British managers, what's the word I'm looking for? Their badge much good, is it? That people coming in their brand. Thank you, Max, for being the grown up and remembering that word and doing, and so good. Yeah.
Maybe Tottenham should bring in Gary O'Neill, and then the next person they bring in will be really good, won't they? Many pointing out. I mean, this game was hilarious because I think all the goals, Barry, were terrible. I'm just trying to think, they were all bad. And I really enjoyed how bad they were, apart from obviously, the agony of wanting Spurs to do better. But many pointing out Spurs could finish 17th this season, right? Their form is so much worse than West Ham and Wolves, who are behind them. They last finished outside the top 10 in 07-08. Their worst finish in Premier League history is 15th, 93-94. Ange has lost more games this season than Poch lost in 3 seasons from 2015 to 2018. And yet there is still part of me, Barry, a tiny part of me that believes.
Well, I'm happy to concede that I was wrong. I thought he would do really well at Spurs, and it's been little short of a disaster. The goals they conceded yesterday were just ludicrous. I was laughing, just laughing. And like the first one, so Papisar fouls, I think it was Bellegarde, needlessly. Bellegarde whips the free kick, which is punched by Vicario needlessly. Should have caught it. Didn't have enough command of his area. Ryan Aït-Nouri follows into the ground and scores, and then Spurs are sort of half-heartedly appealing for an offside against a player who had no impact. He wasn't impairing Vicario's view, nothing. And all this happened inside the first 2 minutes, and you think, okay, well, they might bounce back from this. But then just a comedy of defensive errors, and even the goals Spurs scored were, bad errors
Terrible.
from Wolves players. The Semedo air backheel being a case in point. But Wolves were thoroughly deserving winners. They could have won by more. And I don't know where Spurs go from here. I'd be very surprised to beat Eintracht Frankfurt. But, their eggs are very much... It doesn't matter whether they finish 14th or 17th, really. Their eggs are in the Europa League basket.
But had they not scored more goals than anybody apart from Liverpool?
That's possible.
I heard
it's possible.
that yesterday. I mean, I know it doesn't help if you defend like, that was just shambolic. That was completely shambolic.
I think they've won some games convincingly, but then they've lost a lot of games by 1 goal. I guess the question for Ange, and we did the pod on Thursday, and the Eintracht Frankfurt game, Sam, was that evening. And actually they played well against Frankfurt. They had loads of chances. They definitely should have won. You can't pin that on Ange, I don't think, because, he set them up. Yeah, they're third in the goals column behind Liverpool and Man City. The question for Ange is, even if they won the Europa League, it feels like they can't keep him. But then Tottenham never win trophies. How could you sack a manager who's won a trophy when you never win trophies?
I think the thing he needs to do, because I was pondering that, if you're the board, do you want him to win that trophy? Because otherwise you end up in an Eric Ten Hag winning the FA Cup style situation where you sort of go, well, he has won the second biggest European competition. Do we have to...
Or Mourinho, who they couldn't afford to win the trophy. When they sacked him at Tottenham, just for the League Cup.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
What they need is basically Ange to win it. That would be the ideal scenario. I want to see Ange smiling again. His interview yesterday was very much eyes down. It was very awkward. The interviewer did very well for the BBC. But Ange needs to win it and actually say, right, thanks very much. I told you that I win a trophy in my second season. I have won a trophy in my second season. I need to be humble enough to realise that this ain't working, because it's tough now. How do they recruit? Like, if you're a player, you're looking, if he's still there, you're not going to come because you're not expecting him to be there for much longer, really. So it's just prolonging agony, right? So the ideal for Tottenham is winning that Europa League, and Ange says, thanks very much, I've done my couple of years, see you later, let's move on. That's got to be the best case scenario from here, right?
That would take the humility that does any manager have. Obviously, it could be that all the Spurs moles' fault. We've narrowed it down, says Ange. We've been looking at it for quite a while. We have a fair idea where it's coming from. It's disappointing because you'd like to think everyone who's in our camp is working with us, not against us. It's just waiting for it's Rebecca Vardy, isn't it? Like, that's what we're waiting for from Ange.
It happens quite a lot in Europe, actually. Managers win trophies and leave because they're always flouncing out over the wrong suit or the wrong contract or this. So it's not unusual in Europe to win a trophy and then go. Well, was it Spalletti won the trophy? Won in Serie A with Napoli. He went straight away, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I mean, it could be. I mean, it would be quite classy of him.
Amazing. Let's go to Anfield, Baz. Liverpool 2, West Ham 1. They're stuttering over the line, but perhaps fitting, Baz, that it was Salah's corner that Van Dijk headed in, and they're both going to stay, and everyone's happy.
After it was announced that Mo Salah had signed a new contract and he's posed for pictures on his Baroque throne at Anfield, Arne Slot gave this. It was like a speech an actor gives after winning an Oscar, thanking everyone for their incredibly hard work in getting the deal over the line. And if you look at it, was it that difficult? Salah wanted to stay, but he wanted more money. Liverpool wanted to keep him, and they've given him more money. It seems pretty straightforward, and maybe wasn't as complicated as we've been led to believe. But he has been quiet in the last few games, but he was brilliant yesterday. It probably helped that he was up against a very inexperienced left wing back who didn't get a huge amount of help from his teammates, and he set up both goals. We did have that comedy own goal from Liverpool, which looked like might cost them 2 points. Again, it wouldn't have mattered if they'd only drawn this game, but the sight of Andy Robertson going full Basil Fawlty with Virgil van Dijk after they'd combined to score the own goal was highly amusing. And now Liverpool have, they just need 6 points. They could win the league next week if results go their way. I think they'd probably prefer to win it at Anfield. Interestingly, Alisson was really, really good in this game. Pulled off some superb saves. But what does the future hold for him? Because Marmadashvili is coming in, isn't he, during the summer? And I presume he will not be expecting to be second choice keeper. So could Alisson leave during the summer? I don't know.
It's a good question. To the Amex, Brighton 2, Leicester 2. Pougas, Leicester scored a goal and they didn't lose. This is extraordinary. The turnaround begins from Ruud van Nistelrooy.
They scored two good goals. I'm trying to think. Mavadini scored the first one, didn't he? Okoli's header for the second one was a great header. What a great ball that was in there. I think I don't really care about XG and stats, but there were two this weekend. Here we go. I'm now going to shoot down my own argument. So, wow. One was Brentford's XG was 0.19. I thought that was impressive that Arsenal let them score. And Brighton's XG was 4, I think, 4 point something. And yet they only scored from 2 penalties. So no wonder Fabian Hertz was a bit like, I think Brighton looked a bit like, oh, we'll win this game. We're not going to Europe. We're out the cup. We'll win this game. Where are we going on holiday? And it all went wrong. Fair dues to Leicester. I mean, nobody does gallows humour as well as football fans, do they? I mean, you can imagine what they were singing. You've let us score and all this malarkey and all the words. So I can't see Van Nistelrooy being there next season. Really, I can't be. I mean, it's been shambolic, hasn't it? It really has. The fact that we're talking about them scoring a goal, we're not talking about them getting a win, and we're talking about them scoring 2 goals, says it all. But it smacked of end of season, didn't it? Brighton complacent, nothing really to play for. Leicester knowing they're down, but happy they get a goal.
I did find the boos at full time, Sam, sort of. I know football fans have short memories, but sort of from where Brighton have come from, to just get to this level now where they're just like, boo, this, I'm not there every week. Felt a bit soon to be booing Brighton for being okay in the Premier League.
Yeah, it did. But I think Fabian Hertzler would have booed based on what he said post-game. He seemed pretty angry about it. So I think he was probably leading it.
Unlike Pep going, come on. Yeah, Fabio, he's like, boo them. Boo those idiots.
Exactly. So, yeah, but as football fans, we know what football fans are like, Max. And if your manager's leading you, you follow, right?
Yeah.
You're disciples.
No, fair enough. I did like how Conor Cody sort of tried to pretend that it hadn't hit his arm. Somebody who hates all handballs. Even I thought that was a handball. At the Emirates then, Arsenal 1, Brentford 1. I mean, very much all eyes on Wednesday. On 5 Live, they said Declan Rice took 5 free kicks in the warm-up and missed them all. I suppose what was interesting in this game, the goal is a wonderful run from Rice. He carried it, as producer Joel says, about 300 yards. The Norgard red card shout, I think, is interesting, Barry, in that, especially because it's in between these games against Real Madrid, it's almost like a sort of unsaid, come on, don't hurt anyone today. And I think he could have gone for that.
Yeah, at the time I thought the booking was fair. Having seen it a couple of times since, a red wouldn't have been overly harsh, I think. It wasn't a great challenge. It was late. It was a scissors challenge. He got nowhere near the ball, so yeah, could have gone for that. That was probably the highlight of the first half. That and Leandro Trossard almost killing a pigeon with a shot on goal. Kieran Tierney had a goal disallowed for offside. It's nice to see him get a start for Arsenal. It's his first one in over 2 years, I think. It's typical Arsenal. It didn't matter whether they won this game or not, but more drop points. That's 10. They've only got 10 from the last 21 available. That's their 12th draw of the season, and they're not able to close out games, and that's costing them. And I thought the title race was over at Christmas. Others say it ended in February or even went on as late as March. But I've just never been any doubt in my mind that Liverpool would win the title since Christmas.
If you are an Arsenal fan, which you are, Pougas, you just go, look, we just beat Real Madrid 3-0. They'd have sat there in the Emirates all just talking about that game still. I mean, you could talk about that for so long as you don't mess it up at the Bernabeu, which is possible because it's Real Madrid.
Oh, well, it's Real Madrid. I think the worst thing they could do on Wednesday is retreat into their shell. You can't do that. And inevitably, Real Madrid will have plenty of the ball. But you know what I mean? If they try, low block, blah, 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 and all that, they'll score, won't they? But somebody will score. Vinicius and Mbappe. What a terrible tackle by Mbappe, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Have you seen that? That was awful. Mbappe, Rodrigo, Modric, or whatever. They have to try and play in the same sort of manner that they did. And I mean, I don't want to damn them with faint praise, but talking about how they've been very, very stilted this season, Arsenal. They did beat Real Madrid 3-0. 2 of them were set pieces. I mean, they were sensational set pieces. It just underlines their real struggle in open play to get any fluidity going. So anyway, on Wednesday, just don't go into your shell. Don't try and retreat. You're not going to hang on for 0-0 for 90 minutes, away in the Bernabeu. But listen, there'll be a chance. It's an amazing chance for them. Let's see what they've got. Let's see what their ticker's like. That's what it's about. Let's see what their cojones are like.
Celtic looked set to win the SPL yesterday. They needed Rangers to lose. They were 2-0 down, Rangers down to 10 men at half-time, turned it around, scored the equaliser in the 96th minute. Still alive. Sheffield United have lost 3 in a row. Wrong time to do that in the Championship. Now a 5-point gap.
And they lost against Plymouth. Bottom side Plymouth.
Leeds and Burnley both won. So 5-point gap to Sheffield United in third with 4 games left. Birmingham won the title without playing on Saturday because Wrexham only drew 0-0 in League One, but then they lost 2-0 to Peterborough, boo, in the EFL Trophy final. First time a side has retained it. In the Max Rushden producer Joel derby, Charlton Athletic did the double over us, which means we're probably relegated. 2 great games in League Two. Will says, are you going to have time to talk about anything else once you've all finished analysing the Swindon winning goal and celebration? This was Swindon 5, Bradford 4. Swindon scored 2 in the 90th minute. The winning goal was an own goal from the Bradford right back. 3 Swindon players, Sam. It felt so mean. I mean, I don't have the context. I don't know if this player was horrible to them all game. But when he scored that own goal, they stood over him like school bullies. Like if there'd been a toilet, they'd have flushed his head down it at that moment.
It was like Keown on Van Nistelrooy to the power of 10, because he was on the floor as well.
Yeah.
And kudos to him, because he didn't really react. Rightly, a couple of his teammates did, but he sort of lay there in shock, and I think it was a bit of a bottle job from Bradford. But it's an odd mentality, isn't it, when you're at home as well and you've just scored a last minute winner or an injury time winner in a 5-4. Surely your first reaction is to run off and celebrate with your fans and teammates, not go and scream at the poor bloke who's lay on the floor, who's just nicked it past his own keeper. Come on, Swindon.
John Aldrich did it to Brian Laws in a cup semi. He ruffled his hair after scoring, I think, an own goal.
No.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Karma.
Brian Laws there was a YouTube video of Brian Laws jumping over a canal, just a small canal. I think like his family had put up in like early days of YouTube. And so I started the brand new feature on Soccer AM, managers jumping over things, and then just, played this and kept playing it in the hope that some manager would just jump over something and send it to us. And I don't think any of them did, the bastard. We should mention Tranmere Rovers, right? So they're playing Accrington Stanley. They're both 21st and 22nd. Now they are in League Two. And they were 3-0 down with 12 minutes to go. And they drew 3-3. Has anyone seen the 3 Tranmere goals? They are...
Oh, yeah.
They're unbelievable.
Brilliant.
like if you got one of them in a season in League Two, you'd talk about it forever. To do 3 like that is absolutely insane, Pougatch.
They were all 3. The first is a free kick, isn't it? And what I like about it is the ball bounces out the net really far, so the Tranmere player running in, so there's not a fight in the goal, which there would have been otherwise, wouldn't there? He boots it back to the centre circle. Then the next 2 are absolute worldies as well. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so good, so good. Anyway, look, that'll do for today. Please listen to The Guardian's excellent audio long read podcast tomorrow. It's an archive episode on the anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster. David Conn's piece, The Great Betrayal, How the Hillsborough Families Were Failed by the Justice System, featuring a new introduction from David. That's wherever you get your podcasts. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Baz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pougatch.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Football Weekly is produced by Joel Grove. Our executive producer is Danielle Stevens. We'll be back on Wednesday.
This is The Guardian.